Hello and welcome to the Old Man Orange Podcast. I'm Spencer Scott Holmes.
And I'm Ryan Dunnigan.
And we're coming with a classic that I know that we've always wanted to do. We've talked about it many a times, and it's amazing how you can go over 500 episodes and, not do it till now. But that's okay. It's like you're saving something for like a very special occasion.
Yeah, we're covering the Wild Bunch. And I want to say, aside from some of the via VHS episodes you've posted recently, our catalog for like the last few months has all been basically like, boy, you watching them Japanese cartoons? Oh, you got a Western on. That's good. You know, it's like basically the shit your parents watch and the shit your parents gave you shit for watching. So.
Oh yeah, because like we've had like that. Because even before we had we did Yojimbo and Fistful of Dollars, so it's like you have even those two, and then it's like then we went to like our like kind of like an anime.
Once Upon a Time in the West.
Backed up by Evangelion.
Street Fighter Street Fighter, the Sonny Chiba one, and then all the Evangelion movies, and all right, we got Shang-Chi in there, or whatever. But it's just kind of like, somebody's like,
I didn't really realize it, but we've literally just kind of done almost like Kung Fu Western.
A little bit of anime, Kung Fu Western.
Well, even half of our animes are all Kung Fu ones too. You got like Fatal Fury and so.
Yeah.
But that's okay. Like I've kind of I don't know. Like farther in life and so on. It's like, I don't know. I mean, martial arts movies almost are getting to like the point where it's like that might even be like my all-time favorite genre. I feel like I even like those more than just regular action movies. But that's also like the same way I feel about westerns too. It's just like I just always just love a good western, no matter what. Like it's just one of those ones that. I know at some point someone said, "Hey, you had too many westerns," but I almost kind of feel like I still can never feel like I have enough westerns.
This is one of those westerns they've been teasing for a long time they want to remake. And I'm going to say, if you do it, just do it like, go all out, get the all-star cast, or at least just perfect people. Because the thing is, a lot of times people say, I hate remakes, I hate this, I hate that. I'm like, whatever this remake is, if it ever gets made, I'm not expecting it to be as good as the original, but at least maybe somebody who likes these actors, who's not into old film, will be able to see the story, and hopefully, I'm not imagining it's going to be as good, but hopefully it is good. And then maybe they might want to check out the previous film. Maybe.
Yeah, exactly. Well, because I mean, like, here's an kind of example. Now, this is a little bit different of a film, but like the Magnificent Seven remake, like that one I thought was a pretty solid all-around kind of remake. It's a slightly different and so on, but like they still pretty much delivered pretty darn well on that.
Yeah, and the thing about it, I mean, a lot of people treat because the original's a classic, and the new one, I thought it was a pretty fun movie. I really enjoyed it. Mm-hmm. And people it seemed kind of melodramatic. It seemed kind of like very summer blockbustery. It's like, dude, the original was melodramatic and very summer blockbustery.
Yeah. Like, shit. Like, where were you? I think that's the thing is people kind of forget as time goes on that, like, sometimes it's like, yeah, that was like your Independence Day back then. You know what I mean?
It was a Western remake. The original Magnificent was a Western remake of Seven Samurai, and they looked at that and like, this shit's like 4 hours long. Let's make it 2. So
yeah,
exactly. It's already the streamlined version.
Yeah, exactly. But it is that kind of thing. This is what I will always say when it comes down to a remake: is that no matter what, at the end of the day, a remake never affects the original one. In a sense, you know what I mean? The original movie is still the original movie. It still will always be there, and so on. Because think about how many remakes kind of come out. And maybe they're not that great, but they just sort of disappear out of the radar, and nobody remembers them anymore. You know what I mean? It's like that's not the film that's gonna like take over and be like, from this point on, people are only gonna remember this movie or something like that. And it's not always saying that those ones can be bad or something like that. I mean, I'll use something like, because I actually kind of like this one in a way, but it's different. Is the Total Recall remake? You know what I mean? It's like one of those ones like doesn't replace the Arnold Schwarzenegger, Paul Verhoeven one whatsoever, but it is this kind of like a different like alternative kind of like take on that story and so on. It uses some of the elements from like the book or the short story or whatever it was that wasn't used in the Arnold one. So I feel like, well, you know what? They both have their places,
unless they did something like unless like it was like customary like for every time a remake has happened, and in honor of the remake, we are going to burn all copies of Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho, in honor of the Gus Van Sant one.
Yeah, well, and that director, I even like what he sort of said is like the whole reason why he wanted to remake that movie pretty much was he's like, here's the thing. Psycho is an amazing movie, but people will not watch black and white movies. There's people out there that won't watch them, so I'm gonna pretty much get them to watch it by making it into like a 1999 movie.
And that's somebody's doing like that's more of like a weird passion project than trying to outdo Hitchcock on that.
Yeah, because that's the thing. It's like it's like that, but it's like I kind of get that because I mean that sort of is like the thing is that hey, no matter what, there's people that one, especially if it's a black and white movie, they won't watch that. But two, there's people out there that won't watch old movies. There's people out there that won't watch movies older than 2000. So like, go figure.
Those people,
I don't understand it. Like that to me feels like some kind of weird like film racism that I just don't understand. But
I mean, I know people who don't really like watching movies that came out like too many years before they were born, which even to me, that's like, well, whatever. But at the same time, like, okay, if you can't relate to it, you can't relate to it. But when it's as much as like, dude, there's not that big of a difference. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, like when someone's like, oh, I'm not going to watch Pulp Fiction 1994. Like, so old. It's like, okay, like that to me just feels like literally like almost like the most closed-minded statements I could like possibly hear. Like that just feels like that's like equivalent of like the kid that just does not want to learn whatsoever. You know what I mean? Like just like wants to just drool against the side of the wall all day long.
Flipping through. I was almost like, flipping through Twitter. Like, Twitter is almost old news by now. Like, I guess the easy go-to is TikTok, but I don't know. Yeah, something will knock that off in time.
And
I'm sure.
I don't even want to be that person that's throwing that thing under the bus. I just want to say it's just one of those ones. Like, I don't know. It's like, come on, kids, expand your mind. Like, watch something that you might not think you're gonna like, but maybe you'll find a new genre and a new like set of movies. It's like same thing with music and so on too. When people are like, oh, I don't listen to anything that's like from 2000s back or something like that. It's like, well, you're gonna miss out on a lot of good songs. Just saying.
Yeah, and not to like stay not to like stay hung up on remakes, because the remake for this movie hasn't even happened yet. It's just something they've been talking about for the last 10 years. I just think it's kind of interesting, just thinking like, who would they recast as this? There's one version, and we'll get into the actual movie itself in a minute, but there's one version where they're talking about having Will Smith, and I think he was going to be the William Holden character. People are like, really? He was in Wild Wild West. You're going to put him in one of the greatest westerns ever? Like, wait. Well, that said, aside from that, he is a good actor. But and that's not his best work, obviously. No one's best work in that.
I like that movie, but still, that's just me, though.
Yeah, you're one of the five. Yeah, and but the thing about that though is the idea of him being like the thing about like Wild Wild West. Like, wait, you mean a black guy got that far in the government? Well, I mean, they're kind of going off of, Denzel Washington in Magnificent Seven, bring it back around to that. His character was based off, I think his name was Bass Reeves, and he was a ranger out in the day. Then he was kind of one of the main inspirations for the Lone Ranger. So, It's not like a black dude couldn't move up the ranks in that time. And the idea of being like an outlaw leading into the early 1900s, and he's black on top of it, that even makes it more of kind of like he's got his back against the wall. So that casting could actually really work right there. But then I think they dismissed that version, and not saying that alone would make it good, but I think that's enough of a new element to add to it. They were playing around with the idea of, I think it was Michael Fassbender, Peter Dinklage, I think. And then there's somebody else.
Peter Dinklage just makes it feel like it's going to be like a comedy.
He's even, I don't know.
I'm not saying that he can't be in something else like that, but that just sounds like it's going to be one of those, like, because that's like half the movies he always seems to be in are always kind of like, I'm not saying they're like bad movies, but he's in the goofy kind of comedy films, and so on like that. And I feel like when you have like the Wild Boys, that just seems like such a strange one to throw him in it.
He's either that
feels like that's going to be like the Adam Sandler spinoff one.
Well, he's either like, he was in whatchamacallit, Game of Thrones, the thing where people know him from, and where apparently he's a badass in that. But I've never watched it. So I'll
never know.
But he's what movie was it? God, I'm drawing a blank. But well, I mean, there's movies where he's been the stern, serious guy.
Well, I mean, he's the bad guy in X-Men.
He's the bad guy in one of the X-Men's. He's the bad guy. The movie wasn't that great, but the movie I Care a Lot, he was the bad guy in that. He was pretty threatening. He was good in that. And
yeah, I'm not saying he's not a good guy. I just think it's one of those ones that it does. I feel like it will give it like a comedy feel if like he's kind of thrown in there.
It's probably something to the effect of like, God, imagine being in his situation. I am being an outlaw back in that time. So
yeah.
They'd probably try and make it something to the degree of it being like, well, I kind of see why these guys became outlaws, because in the movie we got, it's almost kind of like, aside from Jamie Sanchez, who plays Angel, everybody else is kind of like, at the time, they weren't all super old and crusty, but they were at least middle-aged to William Holden being like in his like 60s and being like, how am I still doing this shit,
Well, yeah, because I think that's like the whole thing the Wild Bunch kind of needs to go after more. It's the fact of being like, in a sense, an old guy still doing a young guy's game. Like, I think that's kind of what it is. It seems like in these remakes ones, they're trying to focus on, like, other stuff. When it's like, no, just old people's good enough. I mean, like, shit, that's already a challenge in itself, is to be an old guy who has to go rob a train. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, literally, in a sense, well, the Wild Bunch is kind of like an Expendables movie, but of, like, Western. That's how it needs to be treated, I think, a little bit more. I think people are kind of looking in, like, weird different directions, but it's like, no. Go back to the thing. It's just like, and give it that kind of feel, because that's sort of what it's more about. It's more about like being the old guy that you shouldn't be still working this job in a sense, but this is kind of like all you know.
Yeah, and the thing is, when I first saw this movie, because I saw this at a time when I was close to like getting into, when I was just kind of getting into westerns. So this was like late high school for me. So, well, actually, no, probably more like, I don't know, it doesn't really matter. Anyway, but yeah, around that time. So, and I remember just like, I watched The Getaway, and even though that's not a Western, I was like, oh man, the movie's badass, because, Steve McQueen, he was in Magnificent Seven. I really liked that movie. Let me watch this one. Oh, Getaway is awesome. What else does this guy do? Oh, and then like I find out, oh yeah, Sam Peckinpah didn't even like The Getaway that much, that was just a quick buck for him. And then so like, I just saw this documentary on him, and it was mainly focusing on his Westerns, like The Wild Bunch. Okay. So we would often go down to Modesto to stack up on anime, we would often go down to Modesto to stack up on anime, comic books, Western movies, and kung fu movies. And The Wild Bunch was one of those movies that I picked up while down there. And it was just one of these things where I remember I watched like the first, like, the opening heist. I watched that, and I liked it, but then I had to go to work or something, so I turned it off, and there it sat for like almost a year and a half. And then I'm like, you know what? I know this is one of the greatest Westerns ever, and I've only seen the first, like, 15 minutes of it. I should probably just put this thing back on and finish it. And I did. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I sat on this for a year and a half.
Well, sometimes that happens. There's just certain movies. It's like as far as you get, and you just kind of run into other issues in life and so on that kind of take you away from it. But then it's like you come back, and you go, holy crap! But I was sitting on like a gold mine, because I mean this is one of those movies. Like I'll say this, like this movie never seems to really age. Like it's like action and violence and so on like that. Like I mean it's more action packed than like a lot of movies like in the last 40 years. It's like, got tons of fantastic scenes in there and so on like that. So it's like, it's hardcore action. And that's the great thing. It's 1969, that late 60s era, like, is almost that period where it's like, they just started wanting to have those, like, brutal action movies. You get, like, Bonnie and Clyde. You get all the spaghetti westerns coming in with Good, the Bad, and the Ugly and Fistful of Dollars and all that kind of stuff. And that's almost where, like, Wild Bunch sort of falls into that thing, too, where I think, like, hey, like, if they're going to do this in Italy, we're going to do this in America. You know what I mean? And we're going to make a real badass action Western and so on. We're going to have good violence in it and rough characters and so on like that, Not saying that there wasn't those kind of Westerns beforehand, but I feel like the late 60s is where, like, the violence started to really kind of catch up with just, like, the regular kind of, like, old-fashioned, I guess, violence without the blood and guts.
Well, you do look at something like a lot of the spaghetti westerns, like Django and any Sergio Leone movie. And you watch those, and they feel like, I guess this could be R, but I mean, I feel like it's one of those, when you're a kid, I feel like there are those movies you could be shown as a kid, even though it's R, it's not going to be too traumatizing or too messed up or anything like that. Well, this is like one of those ones that came out back in the day. Like, oh no, this deserves to be an R. Like Fistful of Dollars, there's a little bit of blood and there's there's violence in it, and it was probably shocking for the time. But now it seems relatively tame. This though, I'm like, oh no, I totally get why this movie's R. But it's not like, even by today's standards, it still may seem tame. But even then, whenever someone gets shot, it's never like the grasp my chest, then fall to my knees and fall over. It's like squibs going both directions out of them.
And slow motion and everything.
Yeah. Big burst of fake blood. And then, when people get shot, they really like wheeze and they really just hang in there for a minute, just like dying, So I feel like Sam Peckinpah, he's like, I'm going to show these Italians how it's really fucking done.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it really feels like. It feels like one of those ones, like, he watched a bunch of Italian Western movies and said, like, well, fuck it, we're Americans. We should be doing the best, Western around, you know what I mean? And we're going to show them up, And I know it's that thing, too, that, like, I think 20th Century Fox had, like, Butch Cassidy coming out, and I think it was, like, Warner Bros. Was like, fuck, we need something to rival Butch Cassidy, you know what I mean? That's going to be a huge hit. So we'll get the Wild Bunch. We'll just crank it up. We'll get Sam Peckinpah. That guy's a maniac,
Those are like, it's funny that I didn't know those movies were meant to be competitors, but that's so funny knowing that, like, how vastly different. Like, because Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid is such a fun, lighthearted, like, until the end, it's such a fun, lighthearted movie, and they're both about the end for the outlaw is coming. That's what they're about. And Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid is all about, like, hey man, let's just hang out. It's not a big deal. We'll just let's go for a nice ride on a bicycle. Maybe Bolivia.
We got Burt Bacharach playing songs for us.
Yeah, exactly. And then like, we're just a couple of young hippies just trying to figure it out, man. It's no big deal. And then you get to Wild Bunch, just like, life shit. I one time loved a woman, then she got shot in the face right before I fucked her. Like, oh, okay.
Yeah, and that little bastard ran away, and I've never found him since, and I'm still looking.
You looking that hard? Not really, no, but my legs kind of fucked up.
Yeah, because that really is, because like those two movies almost seem like, Butch Cassidy, that's the Western made for almost like the hippie generation, where the Wild Bunch just kind of reminds me of like the generation like almost right before, maybe not necessarily, I guess you could sort of say World War II, but almost even just like maybe like that in between kind of era, where it's just like, no. You know what I mean? Like, we're getting a little bit older now, and shit's getting tougher and so on like that. And you guys can't just be riding on a bicycle listening to Burt Bacharach. I mean, fuck, it doesn't even make any sense. Why is Burt Bacharach playing songs in a Western?
Well, I just want to ask something real quick. I kind of get, like, I love Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, but I kind of get why that movie got so much like hesitation towards Western fans. I do. I don't get how. I mean, I guess there's the Italian thing. We fought them in World War II or whatever. There's that. But there's the whole thing of like, I can't believe I was watching. I need a good old fashioned like Rio Bravo. I need a good old fashioned John Wayne movie. I don't need all this violence and all this like crazy amount of killing and all this blood. It's like, you guys are like the generation that went to World War II. How is this so fucking shocking?
Yeah, well, it's one of those ones, like, and I'll say this, I don't think that Rio Bravo is really that much, like, different, like, you know what I mean? It's like, it feels like if you can like Rio Bravo, you can like The Wild Bunch, and vice versa, you know what I mean? They're both, like, excellent fucking films, you know what I mean? And, like, they still all have violence in them, and so, I mean, of course, Wild Bunch has more violence, but not, I mean, people are still getting shot up, and, Rio Bravo as well. I mean, shit, that's the Assault on Precinct 13 movie.
One of it's actually kind of, and this isn't me trying to just like, shit on John Wayne or anything, but I think it's kind of funny that like John Wayne, he said after this movie came out, like at least according to this video I watched, he's like, this movie should have never been made. It's destroying the myth of the Western hero. Just then I was looking, because before we started recording, I was saying, man, my copy didn't work. I had to rent the movie. I was looking online to get a new copy, and like every other copy, it was bundled with Rio Bravo.
Oh, that's hilarious. And so, well, it's funny because it's like, I love how John Wayne does it, but like if you ever watch any John Wayne movie, like John Wayne's almost like, the best way to describe it is he's kind of just like the old-fashioned, like, kind of just douchebag guy who just, like, dicks around and just, like, you know, destroys people's, like, ways of life. And somehow, some way, he ends up saving the day in the process. But he's just a total ass the whole way through. Because that's what I think makes John Wayne movies hilarious. It's just, like, how much of a dick he is the whole time in those movies.
How much woman he ends up slapping around or whatever.
Well, I know there's one. Shit, I think it's might be if I turn around and look, I might be able to spot it.
Maybe?
The Seekers, it might be in that one. There's a part where he's like, he goes like this house and they're like, you know, this lady or family makes him like a cup of beans or whatever, and like what I was like, oh, this is all we have, and so on like that. He takes like a couple bites. I was like, okay, I'm fucking out of here, and just throws the plate against the side of the wall and leaves. Like I was laughing.
Studio audience laugh track.
Yeah, just like no fucking thank you. It's like whatnot. And that's how I feel like a lot of movies. He just kind of comes in and, you know, I mean, that's the same way he sort of is, like, even in like True Grit. It's like he's just hanging out with like his Chinese buddy and whatnot, and they're pretty much just like smoking opium and, you know, getting fat and lazy and so on. But at one point I was really good at this.
I'm just thinking about the plate thing. I haven't seen that movie in so long. I gotta watch it again. I'm just thinking about the plate thing. Like, that's our only dish. It was. It just keeps going.
Yeah, sucks to be poor. But yeah, it's like I don't know. Like that. Yeah. That's the thing. Is like I feel like. Like it's like, yo, John, you seen how you act, because this is like every movie you're in, just for the most part. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Like, you know what I mean? It's like they make him out like he's almost like the preacher, like cowboy or something like that. It's like, no, you were like, in a sense, I think it's just that weird thing that like at one point you can be like almost like the edgy new guy, and then all of a sudden as time goes on, you end up turning into pretty much the thing that you were fighting against the whole time, and then you're like, what are these fucking kids doing now? I don't fucking get it.
I mean, case in point, Clint Eastwood. I mean, I still love his work, but
exactly.
yeah.
Clint Eastwood kind of always does that too.
So it's like, yeah, no. I mean, that's also the thing. I know we've been talking more about the effect this movie's had than the actual movie, but at the same time, there's so much. I feel like it's a movie that, I don't know what it is. I guess time just does this, but like, I remember this was a movie I heard about throughout my childhood, and then when I got closer to like, late high school, early college, from there I was like, all right, well let me finally watch this movie or look into it, because there was that period where there was a little bit of a border between me and westerns. I was, oh, westerns, that's what my dad watches, and I kind of got into them later. And then I feel like I've kind of not heard anybody really mention this movie until like we covered Quentin Tarantino's book on Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and like I was like, oh yeah, I mean, not that I forgot about The Wild Bunch, it's one of my favorite westerns, but I was just like, oh cool. I mean, I figured if anyone's going to mention it, it's probably going to be him, but I'm just like, I haven't heard this movie mentioned in so long, you know?
Yeah, well, and I feel like that's like westerns in general. It's like, you know, other than like you and me, like it's not like you just walk around town talking to other people about westerns. Like that does not like happen very often. You know, that's a real rare occurrence. I mean, you know what so I think there's just something about that it's just not always brought up nearly as much. So I mean, because it is that kind of, I think it's that thing. It's just like the thing is westerns kind of get farther and farther away, and it's that weird thing is like actually by being in California, we almost are in like the most westerny, like, you know, in a sense, state that there sort of is. I know people always want to refer to Texas, but like when you think about so many of these movies and so on, it's like, no, they all take place in California, and there's so much like western, you know, that main history and so on. But I think it's one of those ones, if you're in New York or something like that, or Florida and so on, it's like these westerns probably don't have that same significance as they do to someone in California and whatnot, you know, especially someone in kind of like, you know, anywhere between like, you know, it sounds weird, but even like San Francisco, because that's like such an old-timey, like, westerny town and so on like that, you know, and then all the way up to, like, you know, Yosemite area and so on. There's so much of that stuff that takes place in that kind of region, you know. I mean, Los Angeles, that is, if, you know, like, you're Zorro, because that's 1800s Los Angeles is Zorro, but... But beyond that, though, it's like I think that is one of those ones. Like I think, to other states. Not saying there's not states like, you know, Nevada and, you know, Texas and Arizona and so on. Those ones, of course, too. But you know, as I said, I think there's just other places that just these westerns don't always appeal. Or unless you're just somebody that might be in like Europe and you're being like, hey, you know what? I live in Italy and I think westerns are the coolest thing ever. You know, of course, there's always gonna be that too. I mean, it's the same thing as like, hey, I live in California and I love kung fu movies. You know, I mean, there's always that kind of stuff too. But But yeah, I think it is just kind of like it's kind of just a lost one because now it's fallen into the genre that only people that are hardcore into movies seem to be kind of hardcore into westerns.
And not this isn't me splitting hairs, but I do feel like in anime there's kind of like a little bit of a love of westerns, but not really. If you were to ask like the average otaku or big time anime fan or even like the people who animators for that, they probably wouldn't have that many westerns to be able to name off, but I think they just really like the aesthetic. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So just because I'm just thinking about like there was a period where it seemed like there was a lot of anime westerns for a while, but not a lot of them other than maybe like Cowboy Bebop were hearkening back to very particular types of particular movies. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe Black Lagoon a little bit. They actually mentioned Wild Bunch, so yeah.
I mean, there's like that, and then there's like ones that always have like like Trigun and like Gun X Sword and things like that have like those like weird anime kind of like western-y takes to them and so on. But yeah, it's just, I mean, that's kind of how it is. It's almost even that weird thing too. It's like Red Dead Redemption 2 came out, and though that game was so popular, you notice that no Western movies followed with that, or there was nothing else. It's kind of like once that sort of came out, and no other Western came with it.
Well, they were threatening a Red Dead Redemption movie or TV show or something. By the time if it gets made, it'll be like 5 years from now, and they'll be like, oh right that okay so.
Yeah,
it's like, that's already a movie that's so, both Red Dead Redemptions are both so cinematic, and they already pull, like, when I was watching this movie, I was like, oh yeah, there's like, literally, there's a level, or a mission in Red Dead Redemption 1, where it is basically the train heist from, I mean, I know there's always a train heist in a lot of Westerns, but this particular one, where they're getting guns for the Mexican army, and they're kind of like trying to backstab them at the same time, so.
Well, I almost will say this. I think Red Dead Redemption 1, like, because in watching this again, I was like, oh yeah, I kind of forgot. Like, that game, it pulls from a lot of Westerns, of course, but I feel like, if anything, it pulls almost the most from the Wild Bunch. Like, that's almost like its target. Like, if there was one solid thing that they were kind of saying, kind of like how Grand Theft Auto would be like, its main target would be Scarface, I felt like the Wild Bunch was its, like, solid one for Red Dead.
I feel like Red Dead Redemption is somewhat of the Wild Bunch if, like, the guys we were following, if they were all a lot worse and irredeemable, and John Marston was like Warren Oates, you know? Well, Warren, it's kind of like, because Warren Oates is more of like, kind of the, somewhat of like the apprehensive antagonist, he used to run with this gang, then he got caught, now he's forced to track him down. So, and he doesn't really want to, but he has to. So it's kind of like if we were focusing on his perspective is what Red Dead Redemption's kind of like. Now, I guess John Marston had a kid, had a family, all this and that. It's a little bit more there. We're here just like, they're my bros. I can't go after my bros. But I kind of like how Pike, the William Holden character, he doesn't hold any grudge against it. He's just like, well, we're not supposed to leave anybody behind. I left him behind. I can't blame him,
Yeah. Well, that's what I sort of like about it, because it's almost that weird thing too, where it's like there's almost like multiple stories going on. And of course, our main characters, is Pike, the William Holden character and Ernest Borgnine and all that kind of stuff. But really, it's like almost like the guy tracking him down and everything like that, like the bounty hunter one, like in a sense that's almost like in another movie that would almost be like your hero character. And I think that's kind of the interesting thing, isn't it? That guy's almost like, he's not really like, I guess you would say necessarily he's more like the rival is the best way to sort of say it. I know it's a weird way to say it when you're hunting down to kill somebody, but it's almost like that's sort of like what it is. That's the rival character kind of coming back, and he has to sort of come after him. And he's got like in a sense, the literally the shittiest posse that you could possibly have, and he knows it. I mean, he's just got like literally the derelicts of all can be.
I think I may have got it wrong. I think that Warren Oates, I think he was one of the two brothers.
I think it's Edmund O'Brien is the guy that because I want to say Sykes is his name, right?
It's either Sykes or I just looked at this picture of Warren Oates and I look at this picture of Warren Oates and it just looks just like him. But I remember the name. That's not the name. I think it's Edmund O'Brien or it's Robert Ryan. So yeah.
Yeah, I want to say it's actually Edmund O'Brien, because I want to say his last name was Sykes.
Yeah, it was something like that. Anyway, but yeah, no, I kind of like, because they go out of their way. You know what? It is Robert Ryan. It's Robert Ryan as Thornton. It's Robert Ryan is the
yeah,
who's tracking him down. So I think Sykes might be the guy. I think that's the old timer. That's the crusty old fuck.
Oh, okay, yeah. That guy.
Which that guy got me off guard because that guy was not to derail us again, but that guy, because usually there's just that I'm the crazy wild old man. He'll play that part for a little bit, and then like someone would say something like, and then he would suddenly get all pissed off, like, oh, they, who's they? They is the fucking world, and he just goes on this thing about how everyone's shit and how we always just blame they and we always blame them. Where you know what I mean? So there's I liked how that guy. He's like, how did my boy do? I know he got cut. I know he died. I know he's not worth a whole lot. But how'd my boy do? And he flashes back to like, oh yeah. I mean, he did fine, I guess.
Yeah, he went down. He stayed there. He shot a bunch of guys. Like, good. I just wanted to make sure he wasn't going to let you down. And it's like I almost like that. It's just like that was the only thing. It's just like yeah, I know he's my grandson and all, but he's kind of not the brightest kid in the world. Caught him fucking the chicken coop once, and I really wondered ever since that day, so...
I knew it was going to happen. Second that boy was born, I'm like, I know how he's going to die.
You're like, yeah, he when everybody else left, I don't think he got the memo, and he was kind of still hanging out there on that, original heist, but, he went down in, like, literally a hail of bullets and then started blasting everybody else, so, yeah, he did a good job.
Well, the very beginning of this movie does a great job with the whole thing of... First off, I'm not one of those people who usually likes to look too deep into like some of the small things. I know they're there for a reason. But the very beginning with the, they show the kids fucking with the scorpions and basically feeding them to ants. Like, first off, hey, Nintendo has been made yet. There's no TV.
Yeah, so I mean, like, whatever you got for entertainment, I do kind of get that. At the same time, it always feels just like, just look at these like sadist children just standing around.
Well, so I think it's a couple layered things. If it's not all these, it's at least one or two of them. It's kind of like, all right, even at a young age, we all have some bad part of us, even at a young age, something kind of like that. So from the beginning, society's already kind of fucked, which is something Sam Peckinpah really approaches in a lot of his movies. And then there's also the aspect of kind of like, okay, you had two or three scorpions surrounded by all these ants. And it's just basically letting you know, it kind of sets up the movie right there. Like, yeah, these guys are getting cornered more and more. They're getting outnumbered, and eventually they're all going to go down in flames. Because eventually they drop a bunch of flaming, like, bushes on top of it for good measure.
Yeah, so it's like, you thought these kids were bad enough just feeding the scorpions to the ants? It's like, oh, no, they're going to light them all on fire at the end.
Like, I really think that's some, like, Edgar Wright saw this and then decided he's going to apply that to every one of his movies, where he puts out a whole bunch of exposition and hints of how the movie's going to play out.
Yeah, and I will say, I think that kind of... Sam Peckinpah reminds me of like that kind of director who would put that in there, and at the same time be like, no, kids are fucking just pieces of shit. That's what I wanted to get across. I don't know why you guys are taking it so far. Like, I feel like it could go both directions of him.
Or he just wanted to do it himself. Like, hey, kids, want to see something fucked up? Get over here.
Yeah, I just pour some alcohol on it. Woo! Big fire goes. Yeah, pretty cool, huh?
This was my TV back in the day.
Still is my TV.
This was my original pitch to the movie, but Warner Brothers wasn't having it. Like, all right, fine, we'll get William Holden.
Yeah, one of those kind of things like that. But yeah, they go into this. I get, like, in a sense, you get this cool big heist at the very beginning where they dress up as, army soldiers and so on. I think that also the big thing too, it's like what makes this Western also interesting, and also where also once again Red Dead really takes from, is it takes place in 1913. So it's like you almost got like about almost as post-Western as you possibly can get. It's literally coming right into about World War I. I mean, World War I's kind of happened, like not for the U.S. at least yet, but in a sense that stuff's all starting up, and that's where this movie's kind of even like almost kind of geared towards, because you start getting these you get weapons from like World War I that kind of appear in here and so on like that. Like you get like a 1911 and so on like that. You're like, huh, you don't normally see that like in a Western. Of course, you get like the little bit more like modern Gatling gun, not like the old crank handle one, but they get like a big old like kind of like World War I styled like a a machine gun in this one, which is pretty sweet.
I don't know what gun it was in particular, but William Holden had a pistol that had like a with a clip, as opposed to like being like a revolver. So,
yeah, that's like the M1911 or whatever.
Yeah, and they were making a point to that, saying like, it's not for sale. That's only Army issue. How do you have that? So that was there's already kind of those little hints leading into it, and going back to what you said, because they basically give Thornton the guy who, if this was Red Dead Redemption, this guy would basically be John Marston.
Mm-hmm.
They basically give him like, yeah, okay, we're gonna give you some bounty hunters to help you track down your old gang. But the bounty hunter, you can see, because it's being done by the railroad company, not really by the government. And the railroad company is being a bunch of cheap, stingy bastards, and they're buying the cheapest help they can possibly get, and you get the most inbred, dirt bath, fucking like hillbillies possible.
Yeah.
Like the bounty hunters are worse than the actual criminals.
Yeah, exactly. You're really just getting the low end derelicts and so on like that. And it is kind of weird because like really at the end of the day, like Thornton is really like, that's technically the main character of this movie, but it's almost like that it's just, we don't see it from that angle. We see him kind of like as not necessarily the bad guy, but just almost as the guy kind of chasing down what would appear to be our main characters, though he technically really is, I guess you would say, if there is the hero of a story, he sort of is that one. It's a weird kind of way that plays around, but I think that's kind of neat about it.
I think there would be an interesting movie, and I'm not saying in the remake do this or do that. I mean, I guess you could do it for the remake. I'm fine with this movie just the way it is, but that setup I think would be interesting in the way of like, we have the team hunting him down, and we have the team that's being hunted, and it's not just a bunch of like dirt fuck derelicts on his team. They're interesting characters too, and it'd just be interesting back and forth. So we could kind of like almost pick a side, sort of. Who do you want to win?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I still think that they got to be somewhat kind of derelict-y, because I think that's the kind of the point of like how like the railroad just is getting them sort of like they're just getting the shittiest, like, and that's what kind of makes that character what it is, because it's like you got one guy who's competent, and then everybody else around him is just a bunch of fuck ups, and it's just like trying to like deal with this. I think is kind of what makes that story sort of like what it is. It's just like, this is what I got to fucking work with. You know what I mean?
Oh, for this movie, I think it's perfect. I totally get it for this movie. I'm saying, just if they were to do if some studio somewhere was to make another Western movie and do, here's the team on the run, here's the team hunting him down, I just think in that situation, maybe one of the teams, you can have the derelict on each team or whatever.
Yeah.
But just to vary it up. For this movie, it's perfect, just because, oh, the bounty hunters are the bad guys? And I guess there are movies before where the bounty hunters were the bad guys, but they weren't as grimy, and they weren't as just like, they're literally taking shit off people that died in the middle of the shootout. People who weren't even like part of the gang, like just passerbyers.
Well, yeah, because like in that huge shootout at the initial like robbery or whatever of like the bank and whatnot, the heist, like people are just getting blown away left and right, civilians, anybody around them and so on like that. Yeah, and afterwards those guys are just going up. Well, it's like they obviously must not get paid a whole lot from the railroad. They're like, yeah, whatever you find on the dead corpses is yours for the taking. Take their boots, take the gold out of their teeth, take whatever the hell you want.
And there's that whole part where there's that whole part where what was I saying? They let you know right off the bat that even though if you're invested in Pike and his gang, they're all. It kind of puts it in a position like, even if you want them to make it out or not, you're almost okay with them dying, because you see them grab some poor bank teller and use him as a human shield. Like, okay, we're coming out. And he just chucks him out, and then all the fucking like all the like inbred railroad bounty hunters start just unloading on this poor son of a bitch, and then that's where the real action starts. So it's kind of one of those things, like right from the get-go, they let you know, no, don't get confused. These aren't like outlaws of the heart of gold. They're all assholes. The only thing they have is an allegiance to each other. That's their one redeeming quality, really.
Yeah, and that would be like my main fear, I guess, if they did a remake of it, is that they would kind of make these guys, they would soften them up, because that's always the biggest problem to like 60s and 70s movies that get remade, because they soften them up. And I'll use this as a perfect example. The Sam Peckinpah's the remake of his Straw Dogs, they soften that movie up a lot, and it makes it not seem nearly as evil as Sam Peckinpah made like those out to be, in that one. So that would be my fear, is that like that would kind of happen, and they'd make them more kind of like, yeah, we might have done some kind of bad things, but we're not really rugged, bad, evil guys, and so on. You know what I mean? And like in this one, it's like, well, this one's like, no, we get the job done. I don't care. You know what I mean? Like, you know, whatever it takes. You know, this is like my job, and that's how we're gonna get done. If people get shot in the way, they shouldn't have been fucking standing there.
And we'll go into more of the reasoning why later, but just to make another example, like there's the final battle of the movie, which we'll get there when we get there. But there's the part where they grab just some lady and just start using her as a shield, just trying to fucking kill like all the other guys in the other room. So you know, this movie
those ladies were bound to like shoot them at some point if they didn't like do that, because there's like that one lady that like William Holden doesn't shoot, and then he turns around and shoots the other guys and so on. Then she pulls a gun out on him, and then he just turns around and blasts her.
But that was someone else. That was I think that was Dutch who grabbed the lady in the headlock and was shooting at the other guys right from the. So I think he didn't even know that happened. But I guess that's also, and that's not me trying to like. It's just one of those things like, you know who these guys are, and we'll get to that part when we get to it. But I mean, really, at the end of the day, this movie can be summed up pretty easily. The way it goes is they're on the run. They go here to get away. They get into a brief scuffle. They go there, and at the end of the day, they end up. It kind of reminds me of Reservoir Dogs in a sense, because they pull off the job and they realize they swapped out the gold for washers.
Yeah, or I think it was silver, but then like they put a bunch of washers in there instead.
Yeah, and then they're like, "Are you shitting me?" They're just like, "We got nowhere to go. We're down this many guys. I mean, the blonde hillbilly kid who was like want to do a little marching band thing with the hostages. He's dead. How many other people died there? Like, what the fuck are we gonna do? We just put all our money into this." And then they get the whole thing where, well, I mean, Angel, who's the one played by Jamie Sanchez, who's the
Jaime
one young
Sanchez.
guy. What?
Jaime.
Oh, Jaime. I'm a fucking dumbass.
Dude, you're from California.
Jamie.
No,
that was a weird
guy's
way.
almost one of my favorite characters, though. Is the guy that plays Angel.
God, it's just like, God, that's a weird way to spell George. What?
Yeah.
Right. No, but like,
but that guy I like a lot. Be like the guy that plays Angel and everything on there and so on. Like, because I think that guy's got like almost like, I feel like if you were gonna make a remake, you could almost use him as almost even more of a like maybe like. You know, I mean, this one he's kind of like, he's maybe like the fourth run character, I guess you would say, kind of down the list, maybe, give or take. But like, you could almost, because this is the guy that almost gives them all the connections. Because like, right when they escape and they're like, shit, we got all this silver and so on like that, well, where are we going to go? You know, he's like, he takes them to like, you know, his village in Mexico and whatnot. And he's got kind of almost the connections all down there as they're escaping.
Well, there's also, we didn't really talk about, I confused Warren Oates with Robert Ryan, but there's Warren Oates and Ben Johnson, who are like just two dumbass brothers. They're kind of like the two. I feel like they're both equally as stupid, and they both just kind of like, where's the guns and where's the pussy? You know, and
they're like the Iggy and Spike of this movie.
They are very much the Iggy and Spike of the movie. You know, like Tweedledee and Tweedledum, and they like their characters I shouldn't like, but I can't help but like them. And they even get kind of stupid at some point because, like, you know, after the job goes to shit and they meet up with the old man, they Edmund O'Brien, they meet up with him and then they're like, hey, now we want to say something. We think that he shouldn't get as big of a part because, you know, we all staked a lot of claim in that. And they have like a shit argument, and William Holden's just like, he gets the same cut as anybody else, and then this and that, and then I thought it was, I don't remember if like Jaime Sanchez said it first or what, but after they realized there's silver washer, he's like, he says, hey, gringo, you could have my cut. You know? He gets pissed and he points a gun like, hey, I'm willing to kill you too, motherfucker. And that's enough to be like, all right, we're all friends again. He pointed a gun at me.
Yeah, it's like kind of like, it's like they were so pissed on like the fucking walkover, like in a sense that like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like these two guys thought like, okay, man, when we get there, we're going to let them know. Like, you know what? Like, you know, I want to fucking rage and all this kind of stuff. And then, yeah, it's just like, that's like, whatever.
Well, they probably weren't hard. Like they're obviously not the thinkers of the group, so it's probably not hard to deter them to do otherwise. You know?
No, yeah, exactly. Because they are they're almost the derelicts of like their team and so on there and whatnot. But no, they're almost that weird thing where like they're kind of like morons and almost like they seem like the dangerous ones of the group in a sense. Like but at the same time you kind of like the characters.
If this was Firefly or Serenity, it's basically two Janes. If Jane had like a twin brother.
Yeah, it would be like that.
And from there, yeah, they go back to Jaime Sanchez's village, and that's where he found out while they're doing this that his father died. They got attacked by some federale who's just been basically working rogue from the Mexican government, basically just being a bandit to his own people.
Yeah, he's like fighting like Pancho Villa and everything like that. I think it explained somewhere. I do like, well, this is something I will say. I like how in this movie too is there's no subtitles whatsoever. So, and like half this movie's in Spanish and there's no subtitles. I think that's like kind of an interesting way to go about, especially when you think about back in the day. You know what I mean? Like in 1969, that's a really ballsy choice.
Did you like call Laura over like, Laura, what are they saying?
I wish she wasn't there watching it when I was watching the movie the whole time, or else I could have had someone translate the whole time.
What's this black magic talk they're saying? Like, oh, fuck.
Like, I got no subtitles on here, not even on the director's commentary version.
I know he's dead, but just the idea of like Sam Peckinpah, like, there's that fuck William Holden again. I wouldn't want you to know this, but he fell off the horse 5 times before he shot this fucking asshole.
I wish we would have had the Peckinpah commentary tracks.
Like there's like that extra was cool. I bought some PCP off him. Yeah. I don't even know if PCP was around back then. Who knows?
No, somebody could have made something. You never know.
Some early stage, yeah.
But
maybe some Coke. He definitely probably bought some Coke off Extra. There is a part when they actually, and then they decide like, okay, well, if we are gonna try and we got one more chance. Like we can make some money this way, and then we can go off our own directions. But we got to make a deal with this federale who's fighting Pancho Villa, and I'm so used to Jaime is so like, because he is probably the one moral character. I mean, he does shoot at some army soldiers here and there, but he is probably the most like morally like balanced character out of that whole team.
Well, because he just literally he's just like, I want to just help my family. You know what I mean? Like that's like what his kind of go. Where everybody else literally like, we don't have family. We're white.
That said though, one it's not like it's not really brought up a whole lot, but it's kind of there and implied. I kind of like the relationship that Dutch and Angel both have with each other, because it almost seems like Dutch kind of views them like, oh, look at this kid. Oh, he's a good kid. It kind of like before we get to the end, it feels kind of like a Mr. Orange and Mr. White kind of relationship to a certain extent.
Yeah.
Not that one of them's lying or anything like that, but to the degree of like, oh, he's a kid. I think he's got a good future in this. Hopefully he makes it out, you know?
Yeah, exactly, because it kind of has that sort of thing going on there. Well, especially Ernest Borgnine's just always great and so on like that. And he does have that kind of like that old guy kind of like, come here, sonny. Like, I'll teach you, all these things. Like, you're going to have a fine outlaw career going on here. I mean, look how old we are, And of course, William Holden's like, no, this is it. We're doing one last heist. I want one last go around, something that I can pretty much go and retire to and so on like that. I can't remember. There's somebody else that says something to him, like, when he says that, be like, the fuck are you gonna go do? Like, you know what I mean? Like, let's be honest. Like, where are you gonna go? What are you gonna do? And whatnot. And I mean, this kind of leads me to something else, but I do like also how, like, as the story kind of goes on, they just sort of have these kind of like random flashbacks that just sort of come in, and with like not really a whole lot of like, it's not like, hey, I was thinking of this. It's just like they sort of have the flashback, and you sort of just learn a little bit more about certain of the characters and whatnot, and kind of in their past and so on, just to sort of add to it. But, just as time goes on, like, it'll just be like a scene where, like, William Holder or something's like just sitting there by the campfire, and then he just kind of has like, a remembrance of this moment or something like that kind of ties in.
Well, there's even that nice, despite how, like, cutthroat and brutal these people are, there are some nice moments where you really do get to see them bond and be human for a minute. And when they're just sitting there with the campfire, and then like I think it was Ernest Borgnine tried the coffee that like Sykes, Edmund O'Brien made. He's like, what the fuck did he do with it? Just like tosses it out like.
Yeah.
Says, why'd you call? Says like, among his skills, coffee sure as shit ain't one of them or whatever, and throws it out. And like, you know, Angel is just sitting there playing guitar, kind of lightly singing. Everyone just kind of letting him do it. It's like, oh, he's got a nice voice, you know. So, like this movie has a lot of moments like that. And when they finally decide to, you know, there's even that thing where they do go and see like the village life, and you kind of see a lot of them get a little like, God, you know, this is nice. Maybe we can do this one day. I mean, we have to stop killing people first, but maybe one day we can kind of get to this point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they sort of see like, oh, okay, and so on like that. They're like, hey, you know what? Let's go with that. Let's go to the main town or whatnot. We'll go have a nice dinner out there and so on. And then all of a sudden, Jaime sees like his old like girlfriend there, and this lady's just acting like literally like the definition of like a cunt. Like it's more than anything you could ask for. Be like, she's kind of like the thing like, hey, you know, like Jaime's yelling at her, whatever the hell her name was and whatnot like that and so on, and she's like, oh, it's almost like that. You like, dude, we dated for like 15 years. And it's just like, oh, yeah, well, whatever. I'm with, you know, what's his name, like General Mapache or whatever, you know. So
General Rapeface.
Yeah, exactly. So whatever. And then she just goes over and just starts like licking his ears and so on. I just love how like fucking Jaime stands up. You can just see it's like building. It's just like, dude, what the fuck? Like he's fucking cunt. Like, you know what I mean? Like, just goes off and just give a flying fuck and whatnot. And he's just like, fucking whore, and then like blast her. I think one of my favorite parts is everyone's like, oh shit, he just pulled a fucking gun out on like, you know, the commander general here, whatnot, just blasted like right there. And everybody's like, were you trying to assassinate the general? Like, no, he was shooting his ex-girlfriend. Oh, well, that's okay then.
I feel like that sometimes people like, I haven't heard anybody talk about that scene, but I feel like that is just really dark humor, and I feel like if other people saw this, like, oh my god, how could they do that? Like, I think it's funny as shit. Plus, it has that whole like close up on his face. He's like, "Die, puta!"
It's like, you know, like, yeah, I just think it's like one of those ones, like, that shot could not be any closer to the general. Like, you know what I mean? In any other situation, that would have been like one of those ones to be like, no, you're still getting arrested or hung or killed, whatnot. And so it's just like, whatever. I mean, you know, William Holm does kind of like, you know, strike up a deal to kind of like, you know, deflame this incident here and so on like that. He's like, well, here's the thing. We'll go steal you some guns from like, you know, the American military. What, you guys like American military, right? Ernest Borgnine, speak some Spanish to him real quick.
And then when like they have like, here's actually another funny thing. It's like, okay, you guys can stay here for the night. You know, you can take a bath. There's the one French guy there, or I think he was French or whatever. She's like, I say they all take a bath. Blah, you know, whatever. It's like, oh, I think you know, you'll be dead by the end of the movie.
Is that the guy like in the white hat and the white?
Yeah. He looks
he's supposed to be a German guy, is what he's supposed to be. So he's almost
that
like,
probably makes sense. Yeah.
He's the evil German.
He's like, you know, it's just like, Dr. Jones, do not destroy the crates. You know. Very much gave me those vibes, you know. But like,
were they all like in the sauna and whatnot?
They're all in the sauna. Oh, I remember what I was gonna say. There's the part, and then they go back to the dumb fuck twins, who like have like 3 hookers among the 2 of them.
Yeah, Spike and Iggy.
Sam Peckinpah really hired real life prostitutes so he can say like, I hired hookers on Warner Brothers' bill. Because those were like 3 real life prostitutes they were like they're like across the street from the filming location or something.
Well, I think that's the thing. Sam Peckinpah just really like just to hire just like random like regular people and so on, just like slap them in there and so on. And it's just like, hey, we'll just get the Spike and Iggy guys and whatnot. They'll just have a weird like hot tub, like 1800s, or I guess it's 1913, whatever, an old fashioned hot tub scene. You know what I mean?
And it also got kind of weird because one's like, we see them titties. Like, oh, no, senor. Titties, I want to see them.
We're in a hot tub, damn it.
My wine hot tub.
Shit, I just shut the living daylights out of that guy. Like wine barrel, like, you gotta show me some titties.
And then, like, I like how when they come back in, like after, like, they decide, like, all right, like, because the whole thing is Jaime Sanchez's character. He's like, I can't work for the guy who's going to be killing my family. And then, like, Ernest Borgnine, as Dutch, says, okay, how about we meet you in the middle? How about we give you a case of the guns and we just say we lost them? And Pike has this look like, playing with fire, but okay, you know, kind of. And then from there, that's when the Gorch twins walk in and be like, we're engaged. with like these three women.
And I love how like they're all like having almost a good time and something, but like when he gets it, he's like so fucking serious when he says that. like almost like he didn't really want to. Like something happened like in the scene we never saw.
Like it seemed a good thing to say at the time. Now he's like, oh fuck, what have I done?
Yeah, I think so. Like it's just one of those ones. Like it's almost like because we're just walking into like the sauna where just like the rest of the old dudes are just kind of hanging out, like, you know, doing old, just like, yeah, we're naked and we're just gonna throw water on each other.
Shit, she's gonna want to get onto my healthcare plan. Fuck.
Wait a second.
God knows what she's carrying. Shit. I probably got it now too.
If we break up, I have to pay alimony now. You know what I mean? And all I have is washers.
I mean, Angel gave me his share, but still.
Still, 2 bags of washers isn't enough.
I'm gonna need at least 6. At least 6 bags. Probably more than that too, if I had to guess.
Yeah, exactly. Which, even though that they get engaged, I don't feel like it's like obviously he just takes off and just says, "Okay, we got out of that situation."
I mean, more of a spoiler. A lot of people in this movie die, but I feel like anytime you're in a Western and someone's getting engaged just to go off, like, we got to do one more job. That
guy's dead.
Well, it's like it's going back to, we covered some years back, we covered Young Guns. Young Guns 1, I don't remember the character's name, but the shy guy who was always kind of nervous and didn't really like fighting, but then by the end he's like, "Aah!" He's like screaming and running out there with 2 guns and gets all like mowed down.
Uh-huh.
That guy, he meets this girl, puts a blanket on her. Hey, you're married! Oh, cool! Like, hey man, we're about to go off and probably die. Like, okay, I gotta go with them. Like, you just got married.
Yeah, exactly.
And he and like one other guy are only 2 people to die in that movie, at least. So.
Well, Charlie Sheen.
Oh yeah, Charlie Sheen was already dead. Yeah, but yeah. True.
But yeah, so I mean, like it does kind of say, except for these guys, it's almost like it doesn't have that thing because they're not like if they were like whenever it's the character who seems like he's kind of the nice boy, you know, he's always trying to do the right thing and someone like that. He just kind of got, you know, hooked up with like the wrong kind of like posse and so on like that. But now he's getting married. That's here. The guy. It's like, oh, he's gonna fucking die and it's gonna be brutal and he's, you know, what I mean, like nothing's gonna good become of it.
Yeah, or if it's an army movie and there's the one guy talking about his fiance or his new wife or his kid back home. Like, oh boy, I sure can't wait to get home and paint the kids' room. Like, oh, I bet you can't wait, yeah.
You'll be painted in your own blood, sorry to say it, but we know how this goes. And you know what?
The kid likes red.
It's not going to be your room. It's not going to be your room anymore. It's going to be the milkman's room now.
Yeah. Hate for you to find out this way.
Hate for you to find out, but Tom's already banging your wife.
Did you find it weird that your newly married wife was so excited when you decided to sign up for war?
Yeah, like I mean, like, you know, like she never seemed to like, you know, just have like, you know, military posters hanging around the house, but all of a sudden she started putting flags up and everything. Like she was so excited. So proud. And then the second you were gone, this is the weird thing, she took it all down. Just gone.
You also notice how all the letters she writes back to you are usually 3-word responses.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that only took 8 months to get back.
Yeah, you know, those telegrams, you know, they're not free, you know.
Anyway. Yeah, so a lot of people die, heads up. And Angel, though, seems like one of the only ones, because, like, he's going to do some shady shit, but he's going to do it for his family. And maybe at one point in time, Pike and Dutch, maybe they had, like, other reasons why they were doing it, too, but they just fell more and more into this life and got more jaded and got more like, I just need to fucking survive. But it's getting harder to do this shit on a bad leg.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like the farther they get into it, it's just like, You know, they just come out like just just barely unscathed each time, and like one day it's just not gonna fucking work out. That's just kind of how it is. But at the same time, it's almost like, well, what else do you do? Like, where else do you go? This is all you know. You know what I mean? It's almost like a Bruce Springsteen song.
Well, when they go on to decide to steal the guns from the American army, and by that point, they're like, Thornton goes back to the railroad and says, look, I need something other than these assholes here. Give me something. All right. And then, like, okay, well, you think they're going to be attacking this train? Okay, all right. Well, you'll be there with these new recruits and all that. And then you look. They look like a bunch of Boy Scouts trying to get their merit badge. You know, like they look like they didn't know what they signed up for. Like, I learned how to tie a knot and they put a gun in my hand, said, welcome to level 2.
And I think that's really what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be like a bunch of 15-year-olds that got signed up for the military. You know what I mean? They're just like, oh, gee willikers, what we doing today? You know what I mean? And it's just like, oh, shit, this... Okay, so we got a bunch of fucking kids now. Okay. Fucking doing summer camp now.
Well, even like the head officer, the guy who's taking a nap on, because he's so like confident, like no one's gonna fuck with this bus or this train or whatever, and like he even looks like a fucking substitute teacher, like he wasn't the guy they were supposed to call that day,
Yeah, exactly. He's like, hey, I woke up, at 6 a.m. I got the telegram came in, it said I needed to show up here.
You kids got this. You passed basic training. Cool. I'm gonna take a nap. And then like, if you have any questions, ask Robert Ryan or the inbred hillbillies behind him.
Yeah, and if a couple of you just want to go sit out in front of the train on like the flatbed, but by all means, have at it. I'm not your fucking parents.
But there's also like a lot of the small like interject, because like the heist is very simple, but it's still really fun and just engaging to watch. Mm-hmm. Like the way that how Ernest Borgnine, he still has like he's done some shady stuff, but at the same time he's also like a little bit more of kind of like, yeah, I was young once, I get it, I don't want to kill people if I don't have to, but if it's gonna make my life easier to get through it, I'm just gonna fucking pull the trigger. Mm-hmm. And then, but like like how he kind of looks out for Jamie, like I keep wanting to say Jamie. I'm just so all this time I thought his name was Jamie Sanchez, Jaime Sanchez. How like but he still gets kind of like a thrill from this life, even though he's not as good as he used to be. There's the point where he gets the attention of two of the guards. He has a gun on him, and he's kind of smiles and nods like, "Yeah, I got you."
Yeah, exactly.
Or I feel like Pike would be more of like, "All right, down to the fucking ground. I'll blow your fucking face off."
Yeah, like we're not fucking dicking around here.
Exactly.
No, but you get like once that kind of goes down, you get a sweet kind of shootout. And the thing was like when they kind of like, well, actually, first I guess it's like they do the silent kind of like, like, hey, we're gonna sneak the train out. All the kids are fucking asleep and so on like that. You know what I mean? And like, they gotta back it up and just like lock it out and then just take off. But then it's like, oh shit, wait a second, down the line is they got fucking Robert Ryan waiting for you all right there, and his crew and whatnot. And I do like how, like, once they kind of, like, after they kind of escape past them on the train and they unload it, they, like, shoot the train backwards, like, on autopilot, just, like, going there. And there's all those kids, like, oh, shit, we gotta get the horses out. Oh, fuck, the train's coming right for us.
Will I still get my merit badge after this?
You won't get that fucking train right now.
Well, I like how, like, the substitute teacher with a gun who was like sleeping there, he's suddenly being kind of like, oh, you god damn it, let's move, he's suddenly like yelling all of them like they all fucked up.
Yeah, exactly.
That anybody who survived, he says like, okay kids, gather around, you all want that new badge, right? Here's what you got to do.
Yeah.
They came at us in all directions, but that's not what it shut the fuck up. They came at us in all directions, comes up with this whole story.
Yeah, exactly. Like, God forbid are we going back and saying that we lost all the guns and the prize machine gun on top.
Because we slept in.
Yeah. Actually, you were the only one to say, shut the fuck up, Tom. Billy, I'll slap the fucking shit out of you right here. Well, my name's not Billy. Shut the fuck up, Billy. I ain't in the fucking mood for this right now. We already lost one fucking horse because it crashed in there because you couldn't get the fucking horse out of the train in time. So you know what? You're walking. That's right. Fucking walking.
Hope those shoes are comfortable. No, but like that whole part, and then they leave Thornton and his gang to the bridge, and then that's where like Pike's like best of luck, like waves his hat, and the bridge goes off on like the dynamite. Like, no one, I don't think anybody died in that, but still, that was just, I really like that heist scene.
Yeah, that's a cool escape scene as well too.
And then when they go back to the Federale, and he has that whole thing where it's basically like, look, we don't trust this guy. We know that he says, oh, he's looking out for us, but we're pretty sure this guy's going to fuck us as soon as he can. And there's that uneasy tension. It was very much kind of like, it felt kind of like a trade-off in a Tarantino movie. And I know that Tarantino
that one guy's like, I'm your friend. Don't worry. This guy looks like so sleazy and so on. He's got fucking like the, almost like goggles.
Shyster mustache.
He's got that too, but he's also got like the, steampunk-like goggles for some reason too.
Hey, gringos, you crazy, man. Like that guy. Yeah, no, that guy, like, that character, like, I guess you need the skeezy character who just right off the bat lets you know, like, yeah, can't trust this dude, but he's here regardless.
Yeah, well, because there's even the one dude that, like, pulls a shot off, and it's, like, almost has that feeling of, like, not like, oh, shit, that guy actually fired a shot, kind of like almost in, like, GoldenEye or something like that, but more like, shit, that was our plan, and this guy fucked up, so we gotta, like, turn it around real quick. Like, okay, you know what? Execute him real quickly. Yeah, see, that guy was just... You know how it is. You get shitty employees once in a while. We're friends.
And then there's even that part when like Pike goes back to the Federale, to the general, and he says like, "We hear there's a machine gun." They're still doing that thing just to kind of like pepper up the deal. Like, you know, they don't really trust each other that much, but there's still a thing. Like, the job was for rifles and grenades. The machine gun is a gift to the general personally. Like, much appreciate it, you know, and then, like, he rides off. And then when they're going off to deliver a second, because they do it in several, like, I'm going to say, that the transfer of the weapons and the goods is more complicated than the actual fucking, like, heist itself.
Yeah, exactly. Like, than anything else. They got, like, all this, like, stuff. Like, okay, 2 guys will go at a time. They'll get their share. We'll hide the weapons in the bushes. Another one will be around the tree. You know, the ammo will be down like by the stream.
Mm-hmm. And they say, and if we don't show up at this time, that means they know we died, which means they're gonna blow up all your weapons.
Yeah. So we got sabotage as well too. So.
And then when they go back, and then like they say, how many? When like Dutch and Angel go back, they say, how many crates do you got? Like. We got 16. There was 17, but it got lost along the way in all the commotion. Then he's like, nah, he took them. I know because the woman he killed, her mother told me, you know? So it's like, oh, fuck. And then you could see Dutch, he says like, so what are you going to do? Like, well, Dutch can't ruin the whole thing. He can't save him if he's already dead. So he's like, fuck. And he's like, he's a thief, do what you will with him. And you just feel so bad for him. Just stand there, all these dudes just pointing and laughing at him. He's just like, but my friend left me. I felt so bad for Angel in that scene.
Dutch can't ruin the plan because, you know, Jaime got caught.
Yeah, and you just feel bad for Angel because he's just sitting there with this look of like, don't leave me, but we were friends. You know, you just feel so bad for him. Because that was their whole thing. He's like, we don't got a lot, we look out for each other. But at the same time, if he stops them right now, then they're all fucked. So when he goes back, you can see he's a thief, do what you will with him. Yeah. And then when he gets back to the group, you can see he's more pissed off than anybody else.
Well, I think the thing is, too, it's like because even, like, Ernest Borgnine has, like, a line where he says at one point, he's like, you know what? Like, Jaime... He's a good actor. He's sticking to the plan. He's gonna follow it through. He's not gonna like sell us out or anything like that. He's he's going 100% by this is how if this is how it has to be. I'm taking one for the team almost in a sense. But he's like somehow some way we gotta figure out a way to kind of get him back.
Yeah, and when they go back, I mean, there's some other scenes that happen between here and there, like the old man like between like. Moving guns or grabbing horses or something to that effect. He got like shot at by one of
the derelict guys. Like, I got him.
Whoa! I'm gonna fuck my sister and not for celebration. Yeah. And then like, oh shit, we lost him too. So as soon as they, think they're fucked, like, all right, well, goddamn, and they think, well, we have no choice. We actually have to go back to the federales for their protection because these guys are on our asses, and where else can we go for a minute? Because they're honest. They know where we're at. They know what we're doing. Yeah. So they go back, and then he says like, do you really want this kid that badly? And they're just dragging him around a car, just
like
with kids,
literally the
fireworks.
only car in like this part of Mexico. Like the one guy who has a car is like, hey, what are we gonna do with this car that cost you a fortune? Yeah, I just got kind of driving around like it's a fucking golf cart on my property.
Well, I even like how they said, because they get across that this army is not well put together. It's obvious why they haven't. They're not a big threat to any country, but they're a big threat to like local villages
and small groups and so on.
And then, but the thing is though, I want to say this real quick. I think it was you who told me that you read somewhere that Tarantino's first two movies he saw in theaters that were rated R, it was like a double feature of Wild Bunch, and I think you said there's another movie. Do you remember what that was by chance? This is a conversation we had a long time ago.
Yeah, I kind of remember him saying that, but I remember but I can't remember exactly what it was, to tell you the truth right off the bat.
I'm going to say this. His first R-rated movie he saw in theaters, I think you said he had to be like somewhere around 7 to 9.
Yeah, because that was, his mom probably just dropped him off at the theater, like, whatever, Quentin, do whatever you want, you know what I mean? Just get out of my hair for the night.
This movie is a point of origin. This is where it starts. Because if you look in this movie, and you can say, oh, it's just an homage. No, it's in every one of his fucking movies. There's a shot of a foot, and then someone's pouring champagne down their foot and licking the foot and going up the leg.
From like the toes
this
all the way
is where
up.
This is where it starts. They
I was just gonna say, this is the thing is like, you take a 7-year-old to go see like one of these movies, and you think it's the violence is gonna like mess him up? No, not at all. The violence had no problem. It's that dude pouring fucking wine over that lady's foot and going up it, licking it.
That's where the foot thing started. I mean, yeah, I could see a lot of other aspects of his movies played into this. Now, at 7 or 9 or whatever, he probably wasn't thinking about like, that was an interesting choice to do this at this time, But the idea of like the fucking foot thing. Oh, okay, all right, that's where it starts. I see it now. Okay.
It just burned into his psyche that way.
Yeah. So then for the night, they're like, well, shit, we can't, because they make a thing of it, like, hey, so we want Angel back, and like, you can't have him back. He's our new fucking piñata, And then they all go off and they all like get wasted and fuck some hooker for the night, except Dutch. Dutch is just sitting outside sharpening a stick.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like, yeah, that's like one of those ones that's like, oh, I guess we got to kill time. Like that's what it felt like, that scene. Like, hey, the TV's not working, so I guess take advantage of this. The general said they were on the house.
And then I can't tell if that was later that afternoon. I feel like it's the next morning.
I think it's supposed to be the next morning, but it does feel like it's for some reason later that afternoon. But it's just, it's kind of out in the desert.
And then like they're all going in. I kind of like how there's this thing where they all look at each other and they all know what they're about to do. They all just wanted to get their dick sucked and get a few drinks in them one last time before they decide to do it.
Yeah.
So there's no words. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Well, I think that's totally what it was, though. It's just like they all knew that, like, what, this is not going to end pretty. This is not going to end good for anyone. So let's just go out with a bang.
And you see them, they all just grab their guns, their pistols, they're just walking through this crowd, and they're going back. And I like how they go up to the federal rally. And like, give us Angel. He's like, oh, you want him back? Here's your friend. He's fucking with him. And they're so close, and then he slits his throat. And I think it's Pike who pulls up the gun and shoots him, and they all look around at everybody, and they all kind of laugh for a second. Because realistically, when you think about it, anybody could slip into the place of the general.
Yeah.
Anybody can do that. But then he just looks at somebody. He sees one of the general guys that he didn't like. He's like, you know what? Fuck all these people. And they just like start killing. They could have just left right there. But there's just this look they give each other like, fucking kill them all.
Yeah, well, I think it's like that weird thing too where like there's like a couple things going on. Like one, I just feel like because the whole thing of this place is, in a sense, this place is everybody's just fucking hopped up the whole time. Like they're just always drunk. They're always fucking high. It's almost like a biker gang type movie in a sense, where there's just a bunch of like derelict guys and they're just like that. And I think it's almost that one where like almost like when that first happens, it's almost like like those guys' brains from just partying all night long, or it's like processing what just happened. Like it's taking a moment, and then there's almost, I think, that thought afterwards, like, oh shit, the general's dead. I think that one guy's like, that almost makes me in charge now. Like, so he's almost like, well, fuck it. Like that, this is working out in my favor. And then when it's like, when like, the rest of like our main crew is kind of like, no, fuck them all. Like we're going down, and they just start blasting away, just like unloading on all these guys and whatnot. And you just get like one of the most fantastic, like, shootouts ever.
I honestly think this is one of the best shootouts ever. And this is, the ending alone, it makes this one of my, I mean, I there's a time I like my top 10 favorite movies in this order. Now I'm like, I got roughly my top 20, no real order. This movie is definitely in my top 20. And this shootout is like, not the only reason, but it's like, it goes out, I mean, no pun intended, but it goes out with a bang. Like how brutal it is, how many kills they get in this movie. They get on that like new machine gun, which they like when they get the machine gun. I like how like when the general first gets it, he's just like having fun with it, just firing it around, doesn't know what the fuck he's doing.
Well, I love it. Like the German guy's like, you got to put it on the tripod, and the general's like, yeah, whatever, fucking come on, load that ammo in there, and he just starts blasting. It just like goes off. It's almost like they can't figure out how to turn it off, and it just shoots up the whole fucking town. And then I love there's a point where like it stops, and then it's almost like the people kind of come out, the mariachi band just starts playing again. I don't know, like that part there, and then I like when the general's like, this is fucking badass, and then he kind of just picks it up and just starts shooting it again without the tripod once again, like almost like he's in like a fucking anime.
So it's like, so we get a little bit of the foreshadow. Okay, cool. We got to see the thing. We saw that thing there, but now we actually get to see it in action. I think it's like by this point, it's like one of the Gorch brothers. It was either Ben Johnson or Warren Oates by that point on the thing, just unloading on people. I think Pike gets on it for a second, then he gets tagged, and then like I like how like Dutch is even like, Pike, no, goes over to him. Like you can see they're sad that they're each going down, but like there's a part where Pike runs into a room taking cover. There's a guy with a hooker there. He shoots the guy because the guy's going for a gun. He turns his back on the hooker, like, all right, she's doing nothing. Then she shoots at him. She's like, fucking bitch, turns around and blasts her right in the fucking face. and then that goes into, like, leads into, I think, Dutch at some point, like, grabbing, like, a lady, using her as a meat shield, and just running at other guys, shooting at him.
Yeah. Part's so badass.
Like it's probably, like, even by today's standards, because the majority of this movie, it's like, okay, yeah, this deserves its R rating. Okay. But by this point in the movie, this is probably one of the most, like, even by today's standards, this shootout's really brutal.
Well, I think too, it makes it like because the only downfall like today now is like it's almost like it gets lost when they kind of use a lot more CG and so on. Like that's what makes these old shootouts so much like I feel like you can't top them is because you don't have all that CG in your way or anything like that. It's just like no, you're getting real special effects and you're getting real stunts and all this kind of stuff, and that's a lot of times the actors doing it themselves anyways.
A movie we covered before. It was like 3 movies in one, I believe we covered.
What one of those like experimental podcasts were like, yeah, let's do 3 movies in one episode. That sounds like a good idea.
I think it was. Yeah, no, it was. It was like we were doing like Tarantino knockoffs.
Well, we did 3,000 Miles of Graceland. We did Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, and then we also did fucking
Way of the
Gun, which that has also one of the greatest like ending shootouts.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, I think that was Way of the Gun was heavily inspired off this shootout right here, because I think Way of the Gun, I think that is one of the coolest looking shootouts. It's not like super stylish, but it's very like brutal. It's very kind of like very tactical in a certain way, but still made it look really cool, Mm-hmm. And this one doesn't look as tactical. It is just like angry old dudes with guns who shouldn't be doing this shit, still doing this shit, but they're just going all out, you know?
Just blowing people apart and so on. Well, shit, I like that Way of the Gun ending so much that in Pizza Boys 9 and the laser tag one, it ends in like a Way of the Gun like style. I was like, yep, I want it to kind of be like that.
Which, how many things homage Way of the Gun?
I know.
I know Way of the Gun is just a big homage to a bunch of westerns, but still.
Still, it's like one of those ones like that. That's a great fucking film, you know. And but no, this shootout here though is so good. It's so brutal. It's almost like so chaotic that like I feel almost even for the first time you watch it, you could almost get sort of lost in it because it's so badass and how much carnage is going on here, and you know, just everybody just gets taken out like this, and you know, nobody kind of pretty much lives and so on. Like to the point where, what's his name, Robert Ryan comes in at the very end, Thornton and whatnot, and he kind of just sees it like, oh shit, they just blew apart everything here and whatnot. And he does that thing where he's like, you know what, all you derelicts, you know, take whatever you want, like, and you can take the bias. You know, I'm just gonna fucking hang out here. I'm done with this. I'm not going back to America.
Yeah. Well, I like that whole part because you can see he's sad because he's like, all right, well, nothing waiting for me in America. My two of my best friends are fucking dead. I don't know if he knew Lyle Gorch or Tector Gorch, but he definitely knew Pike and he definitely knew Dutch.
Yeah.
And you could see he was pretty like down about that. And then the idea of like, what the fuck am I doing? There's nothing there waiting for me. And then just sitting there. And then we see the old timer is all right. And not only is he all right, but he was aided with a couple of the Mexican freedom fighters from Jaime Sanchez's village.
Yeah.
And he says like, oh yeah, those derelicts you hired, they didn't get that far. Like, I didn't think they would.
Yeah, well, I love that part right there.
And he says like, we got a nice burial place for the boys, this and that. You know, they're not making it back stateside. Like, that's good. He's like, what do you want? He says, we're gonna be joining up another group, another revolutionary group. So I got nothing better to do. So, you know, so it's like, okay, bad men trying to become good near the end. All right.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, that's it. Cut the credits and so on like that. Like a great ending too to top it all off.
Yeah, this is seriously one of my favorite movies. And it's like, yeah, I mean, it's a long movie, so it's not a movie I could, if it was on, I could probably just sit there and watch it or put it on as comfort food. But if to sit down and watch it the whole way, I could, but I just gotta make sure I clear out time for my day for it, you know? So, but no, this movie, it's one of my favorites. I think this is, and I think a lot of other people would agree with me that this is one of the best Westerns ever made.
Yeah, definitely. And it's like it's like one of those ones, it's like a pure perfect movie. Like there's like, it's just good from beginning to end, solid like 4 out of 4, you know, the whole way through. Like I feel like definitely a must watch for anybody, especially for Westerns, but even just action fans in general and film historians and all that kind of good stuff. Like, yeah, it's just too good with the Wild Bunch and whatnot. But it's that thing too. It's kind of fun because a lot of these movies is like I felt like that we've been kind of like talking about and watching like in the last while. It's one of those ones to be like these movies like I probably haven't watched in like 10 years, and it's just mainly just because there's just so many movies out there, and you know there's only so much time in the day to watch so many things, and you're always trying to keep up on things you missed and new movies and all the different things in between and whatnot. But it's almost kind of this nice like refreshing thing where I feel like going through these movies that I haven't seen in like 10 plus years and being like, man, forgot how good this movie is. Like I knew this movie was good, but I forgot how good it was, you know, almost the same way I felt like when we watched Once Upon a Time in the West, and you know, even things like Fistful of Dollars and so on.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, I don't want to do too many Westerns or too many of the same thing back to back like that, but I wouldn't mind going off and doing other Peckinpah movies down the line. We already did The Getaway with Wes from Via VHS, but I wouldn't mind doing Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia. I haven't, it's been a long time since I've seen The Ballad of Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid, but I'm really good.
Yeah,
there's a couple movies of his I haven't even seen just because it's
there's the one I really want to see is called Cross of Iron. I think it's like the World War II, like Sam Peckinpah one. It's like 1978. I want to say that one always looks interesting. So it's one of those ones you almost gotta just throw down like $20 plus for it. Like I never see it for cheap or anything like that, but But that would be a fun one to do too at some point. But yeah, check out the Wild Bunch if you haven't seen that. But beyond all that kind of stuff, you can always go to oldmanorange.com for more podcasts, comic books like Pizza Boys. If you want to see that like Pizza Boys homage, it's in issue 9 in the laser tag special. That's the homage to Way of the Gun. But it's in there. And then all our old animations and all that other fun stuff up on the website. But I'm Spencer Scott Holmes.
And I'm Ryan Dunnigan.
And we'll see you some other time.
Later, folks.